welcome to Cooking with Dr. Dewey Stevens. I'm your host, none other than Dr. Dewey Stevens, although I should mention I'm not actually a doctor, I just play one on TV. Today we're going to make scrambled eggs, or as I like to call the best scrambled eggs on the planet. Whether they actually are the best, we'll let you be the judge, but just wanted to go over a few things that I've got in here. A nice non-stick skillet. I'm going to place over here on the stove. We'll heat that up in just a minute. Also a good whisk and a bowl with the eggs. If you don't have a whisk or a bowl like this, any bowl will do. Obviously, for the size of how many eggs you're going to do, a bowl and a fork will work just as well. In fact, I often, if I'm doing just one egg, I'll scramble it in a bowl with a fork. It works really well. I'm going to be using some butter today. You could use butter or you could use olive oil. Obviously, butter is better, right? It's not as healthy, but you can use olive oil. I just try to not use like an extra virgin olive oil because it can burn, and some of the flavors in olive oil can take over the eggs. You really want to have some flavor of the eggs, and the butter helps with that. So totally your preference. I've got some other ingredients here, some seasoning, obviously some salt and pepper. I like to use some granulated garlic and granulated onion. Totally your preference, obviously. It's all about knowing your customers, right? So who are you cooking for? If you're cooking for adults, obviously you might use some more seasonings. You could also have some optional ingredients like chives or scallions. I sometimes will like to will saute some scallions in the pan before I do the eggs, and then mix them in with the eggs. But I'm going to be cooking for a few people today that don't necessarily like scallions or chives. You could also use mushrooms. I like to do some sauteed mushrooms or even some caramelized onions too, if you would. But that's we can do a later show on that as well. I'm just going to keep pretty much simple today, just some scrambled eggs that have some elevated flavor. Nice thing about these eggs, they are very flavorful, and they'll be extra fluffy because of our secret ingredients here, which are really just some water and some milk. I like to mix in a little water and milk. The milk helps with the texture of the eggs, makes it a little bit more creamy, and both the water and the water in the milk will actually boil a little bit with the eggs as they cook, and steam them and help them become more fluffy. So those are some of my secret ingredients with those. I'm using brown eggs today. We generally have brown eggs in the house. There isn't really a difference between brown or white. Most eggs are they're identical, right? Nutritionally or taste-wise, they don't taste any different. I just usually have brown because brown are generally, if you buy cage-free or free-range eggs, they're generally labeled, are brown instead of white eggs. And I try to go with free-range just because, although cage-free are technically better than how other chickens are treated, but free-range has they have access to the outside. So it just makes me feel better as a person, making sure the chickens can have somewhat of a happy life, right? So I've got brown eggs here, and I'm going to go ahead and we're gonna crack them here, and we're gonna start whisking them. Here, I'm going to use our compost bin. We try to compost when we can. We actually use the compost out in the garden outside. So eggshells are handy to throw right in the compost bin. If you can't do this one-handed, don't worry. It took me a long time to learn. You can do it two-handed if you need to. Crack them right on the counter. The trick to doing them one-handed is really just to give them a little smack, and then kind of give them a little squeeze, and then pull it apart like that. For me, the guideline I use for how many eggs I'm making is generally try to do 2 eggs per person, minus 1. So I am cooking for 3 people today, so that's going to be 6 eggs minus 1. And the reason I do minus 1 is I'm not really sure exactly, but there is some sort of witchcraft that happens when you scramble eggs that creates more eggs out of less. I don't know what the deal is. That's just generally my experience. If you're cooking for a bunch of lumberjacks and you need the extra sustenance, go for it. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and add some salt. I use kosher salt. If you don't have kosher salt, you can use whatever salt you've got. It's no big deal. Try to do maybe 1.5 pinches here. If you're using regular table salt, use a little bit less. It can be a little bit more salty. A few grinds of some cracked pepper. Again, if you don't have fresh pepper, just regular pepper will do, it's fine. I would generally put more in here if it was just me, because I like a little extra pepper in my eggs, but again, know your audience, know your customers. I don't really measure a lot, so I kind of just give it a nice little tapping here. I don't want too much. You don't want to overpower it. Just maybe a teaspoon or so, if you were going to put a measurement on this. Some onion, some garlic, just gives it a little extra flavor kick, in my opinion. I'm going to go ahead and start the skillet now. And if you've got if you're using a non-stick skillet, another good general rule, I'm going to put this on a little between medium, low, and medium. When you're using a non-stick skillet, you generally don't want to go past medium. A lot of the materials used on non-stick just don't handle high temperatures well, right? So you want to try to keep the longevity of your skillet, make sure that it lasts as long as you can. And we're not searing a steak or anything like that. It's just eggs, right? They just need to be hot. We don't need to cook them to death. I'm going to go ahead and start whisking these. I'm going to give these a nice vigorous whisk. And the whisking, as long as they're mixed up, that's pretty good. The more you whisk them, they'll kind of work some air into them. And again, that'll help with the fluffiness of the eggs. It'll make some nice light texture. They're mostly mixed at this point. I'm going to go ahead and stir in my water, which again, not a big measure, but if I had to, probably about a tablespoon water and milk. Again, the milk, I think, adds a little bit of flavor and adds to the creaminess of the eggs and just the liquid in general. Let's give a little hand stir here, mix it up a little bit more. The water in both of them just steam when the eggs cook, and it just, I think, helps overall. So give this a little whisk. You don't need to beat it to death. Again, I like to work a little bit of air into this. So when you start to see bubbles form, you're pretty good. Now, I'm going to go ahead and nice little, almost like a tiny little bit of froth on the top. Throw this in the sink here. I've got about, if you're, how butter is measured, they've got the little lines on the thing. I usually do about 1/2 to 2/3 of a tablespoon. You could do a whole tablespoon if you're doing more eggs. Again, if you like butter, which I do, you can use more. I'm just not big on measurements. One of my things is creativity in the kitchen. Yes, you can follow a recipe. Yes, you can use tablespoons and whatnot. And generally, I go by those guidelines, but I like to add a little creativity to it, a little flair, right? A little bit more here, a little bit more there. Obviously, I'm using the infamous the little glass jars, not necessarily for measurement, but more for just preparation, and just kind of looks nice on TV, right? So the skillet's starting to get a little hot here. You can feel it, and I'm gonna go ahead and add the butter. You can tell it's just about ready because it's starting to sizzle, right? And it starts to get that little froth in there. So I'm gonna let that sit for another minute here. Turn it up just a little bit. Again, don't really want to go higher than medium for the sake of the skillet. And again, it's just eggs, right? We're not cooking a steak or anything crazy here. We don't need a sear on this, and that's part of the trick to the eggs here. I'll show you in a minute here. So we've got our eggs, they're all scrambled. We've got all our seasonings in place. I'm gonna go ahead and pour the bowl in. One of the tricks I use when I'm cooking is I like to clean as I cook. Just so I'm gonna pour the eggs in. I'm gonna let them cook for just a minute, and it gives me just enough time to sort of give this a good once over. Wash out the bowl and the whisk. these are just starting to bubble a little bit in the pan. You can use a spatula. I like to use a spoon. I got these little wooden spoons. My wife bought these for me online as a Christmas present because if you've got some of these probably everyone's got one of these in their kitchen, right? An old wooden spoon, and we needed more. I had one that was broken, and we lost another one. I don't know where, and so I got these ones, and they looked the same online, but they're a lot smaller, and I actually kind of like them because you can use them for other things. You can get them inside of jars and cans and things like that, and they're just a nice little utility spoon. So I'm going to go ahead and this is starting to cook. I'm kind of just going to scrape it around a little bit here, start to scramble it. You know, the whole term of scrambling it, you don't necessarily need to scramble. We already did the scrambling in the bowl, right? So that's part of the trick here. But I'm just kind of slowly turning them around, making sure that the cooked parts get turned over, and that the more the liquid starts to hit the pan. And as this starts to come together, I'm going to go ahead and make sure we get all the uncooked parts done. You'll notice as they start to come together, they have a sort of a shine to them. And as that shine starts to dull, just when you think there's just a little bit of shine on there that's just lingering, they start to come a little dull. Turn off the heat. You turn off the heat and continue to scramble them. They will continue to cook in the pan, even without heat. So again, you don't want to overcook them. We've done a nice job of seasoning them and whisking them, create those flavors and texture. We don't want to overcook them. We don't want to burn them. You can put it down here as long as it's off the heat. Scramble them up a little bit more. All the shininess is gone now. And done. That's pretty much it for the eggs. I'm going to put some on a plate here. Maybe add clean plates right there. Got a big one. Go ahead and add some of these here. And they're still a little warm, so I'm going to be careful, right? But not bad if I do say so myself. Again, just some tricks. Make sure you use some seasoning. I like to use onion and garlic if you're cooking for kids. I usually will leave out the garlic. I might put a little bit of onion in. One of the tricks I've learned, if you're a parent, you know that sometimes you have to trick your children into eating things. So if I'm adding seasonings and they're curious about what's in it, I always say, well, they're the special eggs. And that just makes them special. They're just pretty much regular eggs. But again, you could use lots of different seasonings if you like to. I like to keep it simple and really create more of the texture and kind of elevate it with just a little bit of simple salt and pepper, some onion, garlic, nothing crazy. So hope you all enjoy. This is my first video, and I hope to make more. If you want to hit the like button and let me know what you're thinking. If you've made them, if you have questions about them, I'm happy to answer. If you've got, I'm going to be doing some more recipes. I've got a whole list of things that I want to do, different little short episodes, and hope to create some good content for everyone and really just share my love for cooking. It's one of the creative things I do, and so I just want to share it with them. If you've got something that you want to you want to see tried out, go ahead and post and send it to me. I'll try it out. Like I said, I've got a lot of things that I want to do, and I'm always looking for a challenge. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy.